Let's go ahead and bring in Chris Mulcahy, meteorologist, covering things for Hurricane Erin, not having a direct impact on the mainland for the most part, right, Chris?
Yeah, and you're already seeing some interesting video of the overrunning of some of the water and some of the roads, and it really just shows you the impacts you can have for an epic storm without it actually making direct landfall. I think the best example of this, and it was a much stronger side of the storm, was when Helene actually rolled past Tampa Bay. And there was significant storm surge associated with that, even though it never made landfall. This one is a much lesser scenario that is farther off towards the east. You're not on the worst side or the dirty side of the storm, but it's still significant because this storm is an absolute monster. So let's bring it up. The most recent specs that we've had on Erin was officially a Category 2 hurricane at winds at about 100 miles per hour. So that's the sustained winds. We have nothing to worry about as far as hurricane sustained winds. But the problem that I think most people have with hurricanes is that we focus so much on the winds, but it's oftentimes the localized flooding, the coastal storm surge that are some of the most deadly parts of this. So that's why a lot of people have been mandatorily evacuated, as you were mentioning, the state of emergency, just because of the amount of water that's picked up. Where these hurricanes are kind of like magnets as far as the water goes. So they literally lift a huge bulge of the water up and that splashes it all on shore. So that's exactly what we're going to be seeing in the short term, that we're going to see a big colliding or a big splashing of all that water onto the shoreline, and that's going to allow for a terrible situation for the Outer Banks. Surrounding areas such as Charleston that we are oh so used to flooding even when there's a chance for, say, a heavier downpour, are also going to have some flooding concerns and issues there as well. All right, so moving on, the worst of the storm luckily is staying offshore, but as we already mentioned, it actually doesn't even need that much to cause an impact. But I also want to show you, compared to when we were in the Impact studio yesterday talking about this, or at least when I was, the difference. You had a lot of dry air that was cutting into this, but notice how much this has grown, that you can see the pure deck of clouds and how wide it is, that it yeah, and it's a nice little swirly right there. Not quite shrimpy, but this is an example from about 3 a.m. this morning, and it's grown even bigger than that. Look at the Carolinas compared to how big the storm was even just 6 hours ago. It's massive. So this is much bigger than the Carolinas, so we can really thank our lucky stars that this was a big miss, because if this made landfall, this would be another retired storm and just epic flooding. So I'm really happy with the scenario. It's still not good. You've still had over 90 rescues in North Carolina around Wilmington, Wrightsville Beach, Surf City over the last 2 days. So hopefully people just stay out of the water, because those double red flags are going to be waving for a reason. There was less rescues yesterday because a lot of people were staying out of the water. Now it's especially dangerous, and that's why there's a high surf advisory, a high rip current danger, not just for the Carolinas, but I'm talking about the entire East Coast, pretty much all the way from Florida up to Connecticut and New England. So our Hurricane Erin advisory at 8 o'clock didn't really change too much. You're still seeing a chance of getting up to about 110 mile per hour winds to 115. That's right on the cusp of a high-end Category 2 to a Category 3 storm as it's passing east of the Carolinas. And then eventually we're not even calling a hurricane anymore by the end of the weekend, and then it's going to sail out to sea, and then it's even becoming post-tropical storm. So it's at its end, but it still has the highest impacts, I think, really tonight and tomorrow morning. It's also starting to get a little bit faster. As for that 140 mile per hour wind that we had on Monday and the 160 that we had over the weekend, that's in the rearview mirror. We're not going to intensify that much. At this point, this is pretty much just going to be a slight little tick up before it really starts to come down by the end of the week. Also, look at the potential wind field. Yesterday, this is a little bit further west. It's trended a little bit further east. So as far as the chance for sustained tropical storm force winds, it's primarily just for the Outer Banks. That storm surge is likely going to be about 1 to 3 feet as well. This has come down a little bit, but we've already seen some of the overrunning. That's physically when you have waves and water that are coming through, taking over roads, coming on under some of those homes. We're definitely going to be seeing that that, but I think the max storm surge that we see is 4 to 5 feet, but that's very isolated, where if you look really closely, looking at this more detailed storm surge prediction, it only has a little bit of yellow that's in there. But if you expand outwards, you can still see that we have some blue and storm surge potential for some of the inland areas right around some of those alligator coves, and then also a little bit of blue for up to a couple foot storm surge from Myrtle Beach up to Wilmington. And then, of course, the more inland areas right around Charleston, all you need is a storm to even be, I'd say, like 1,000 miles away to push enough water in there to cause some flooding there. So the areas that flood are likely going to flood again. As far as our wind gusts go, you can see them starting to reach their maximum really by 4 a.m. Tomorrow morning. That's about a 6 to 8 hour difference compared to when I was talking yesterday. So this is trending faster. And again, it's only going to be the far eastern side of the Carolinas that are going to be most impacted. A better look at the next 36 hours. I was really hammering this home yesterday. We were so lucky that if these storm systems, these fronts, that high that you're all seeing there, if that wasn't in place, this would be making a direct impact into the Carolinas, and that would even be affecting Charlotte's forecast. But instead, we can see that it's trying to work its way into a beach vacation for the Outer Banks, but then a near miss pushes it out to sea. So yes, there are going to be some major impacts, but as far as a storm of this magnitude, this is the best case scenario that we could have had, even though it's still not that good and we still have states of emergency. Back home, we're starting to see a little bit of blue sky. We had some dense fog that's now starting to clear out. By the middle of the afternoon, we're back to the mid-80s. Yesterday, we only hit 85 degrees, and the reason for that is the cloud cover wouldn't give up. We were supposed to maybe see it for most of the afternoon. Said it was only a sliver of the afternoon. Today, you're going to have a much better chance, but we will see some clouds building in from the southeast. So if you live, say, around Rockingham, you will have better chance for clouds, say, compared to around Charlotte. As far as our rain chances going forward, we have rain up in the mountains and the foothills, and then it's Thursday night into Friday. I think that's our sweet spot and our best chance for some flooding rains, especially west of I-77. We're already seeing the clouds break up here for our WCNC roof camera, and high temperatures right around 88 degrees. But I want to go through all the rain chances that you're potentially going to see over the next 68 hours. Today, it's mainly in the foothills and the mountains. So congrats to the kids that went back to school. Maybe they're not feeling that. Maybe congrats to the parents more. In Avery County. Well, you're expecting some thunderstorms potentially right around there when the kids are getting home, so keep that in mind if you're a parent watching from Avery County or even Watauga County, because your kids already went back to school on Monday. But notice the storms are all in that blue zone. That's the thunderstorm zone. The thunderstorm zone. Anything in the gray, likely not seeing a storm or even a rain shower, so that does include Charlotte, Monroe, and areas east. By the time you get to your Saturday time frame, I think we're starting to break up a rain chance, but they really start to become a little bit more widespread through tomorrow. Tomorrow, starting the clock at 2 o'clock, we see signs of storms up in the mountains, scattered throughout the afternoon, but it's a much better chance closing out the evening, so that is going to be affecting, say, Panthers forecast, rain jogging into the morning hours on Friday, keeping clouds around, and that's also why we're looking at a much cooler forecast for your Friday and your Saturday, with lingering clouds, kind of a lesser example of that cold air damming, and then we shift the winds again back to the mid to the upper 80s where we should be this time of year. Better weather for the Charlotte FC match, and then we really end the month rather cool. So it's actually a big difference in temperatures to close out the month, and I actually made this earlier, but I never really had a chance to show it. So you have our 6 to 10 day outlook. We're trending well below normal, so it doesn't really look like we're going to have anything big surge as far as any sort of warm-ups in the near term. And as far as the tropics go, I know all of our focus, of course, is on Hurricane Erin. Well, we could be talking about Hurricane Fernan a little bit later on in next week, because we have a 60% chance for development. But the good news is, because where Erin is and the way the flow is going to be, it's going to keep it even further out to sea. But if you look really closely in that orange, there is a little speck. This would be more in line for a Bermuda situation. But with the waters, rapid intensification, it is following the similar zone where we did see this storm, Erin, become a Category 5. So that's something that we want to watch. We like that it is trending a little bit more out to sea, not so much for Bermuda. And then right behind that, we have another tropical wave. It's this time of year that we start getting more tropical waves coming off of Africa that push their way to the west. They can take up to 2 weeks to make their way to the United States. And then especially once we get closer to September, we'll see a lot more waves developing over in the Gulf. So we're only at the beginning. Officially, it's actually August 20th, today, until October 10th. That is the true maximum potential for hurricane season, where September 10th is smack dab in the middle for the absolute peak. So we've only really just begun, and boy, is it already looking like it's going to be active over the next few weeks.
Wow, and we're coming up on a year for Hurricane Helene. So yeah, that makes sense. September is just that tricky area towards October. All right, we're going to enjoy this weekend, though. A little break.
Yeah.
Temps.
Yeah, of
That'll be
course.
pretty nice.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing with August. It's been all over the place. We just had a spell of the 90s. We should be in the upper 80s. And one thing I didn't really get to, there's so much going on. The best news I have for you is by earlier next week, when we're talking about the dip back into the 80s, it should actually be a break from the humidity as well. So it's actually going to start to feel comfortable the middle of next week. So the end of August is kind of back to more of that October feel as we had earlier in the month.
All right. Thank you, Chris.
Of course.